Hey club members, we are thrilled to have Amita here. She is a practitioner of Ayurvedic medicine and an owner of a health and wellness center here in Durango, Colorado, as in Tucson, Arizona. She's an educator, a speaker, and a soon-to-be author. I have just found out, very exciting. So we are thrilled to have her, and we kind of wanted to just start with a little intro on Ayurvedic medicine.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for having me on the show today. I wanted to talk a little bit about Ayurvedic medicine and the principles for those of you who are not familiar with it. Ayurvedic medicine is an entire system of health that, although originated in India, the principles are very universal. They really go based on the 5 elements. Very similar to Chinese medicine and the way in which we look at the different qualities, not only in the body, but we also look at it in the food that we eat, the medicine we take, the climate that we live in, and then also specific actions that we take, like particular exercises, time of day that we are functioning, waking up, going to bed. Ayurveda takes principles of every part of our life into consideration. Ayur means lifespan, and Veda means science. So the science of our lifespan is what Ayurveda means. When we look at Ayurvedic medicine, what we're really doing is we're looking at every person as an individual. No one person is the same. We do have a way of looking at the human body in 3 different forms. One is through understanding the movement of the body, and you can almost take some of the qualities of air and ether, that space between, to indicate how that functions in who we are. So it's part of our respiratory system, our eliminatory system, circulation, basically transport between cells, eating, talking, moving. These are all actions of that air quality, which we call Vata, V-A-T-A. The next way that we look at the body too is in terms of the conversion that takes place. And that's called Pitta, P-I-T-T-A. And Pitta governs all of the things that actually transform from point A to point B. So metabolism, digestion, production of enzymes, production of hormones, all of these things that convert from point A to point B. So anything that we do, even literally analyzing something, chewing our food, digesting it, absorbing it, and moving it through the gut, these are all processes of Pitta. And that can be related to a little bit of that fire element along with a little water. And then the last way we look at the body is through the particular elements of water and earth. And that is what we call kapha, K-A-P-H-A. And those kapha components in the body that make up the body are literally the structure of the body, very visceral, very grounded. Bones, muscles, tissues, tendons, anything that can be quantified. This is that kapha quality. So sitting, sleeping, maintaining, these are all qualities of kapha. So obviously we have all 3 in our body, right? But we all have a tendency toward one predominance or another in various parts of our body. And it can either be physically, mentally, or even digestively. So we can have a predominance of any of these in these 3 qualities. So how does that show up in the human body? In so many different ways. That Vata element, that Vata quality, people who tend to be Vata are the ones who are very creative. They're the artists, the dreamers, the inventors. Physically, their bodies are very thin, lean, and very flexible. They can sway from one direction to the other. They fly by the seat of their pants. But sometimes some of the dysfunctionalities can be poor circulation, dryness of the body. You know, if we take the air element and we move it, it's cold and it's dry. So too much of that can actually result in dysfunctionality in the body in that regard. Anxiety. So we want to keep that quality of Vata balanced in all of us. And this is what the extreme of one looks like, or the extreme of the other. People who are more Pitta or fiery by nature, they're the go-getters. Type A personalities. They see the problem, they see the solution, no-brainer. These are the type of people that physically tend to develop very nice muscle definition because they can convert all the food that they process very quickly. People who are pitta have actually really strong digestions versus people who are vata have very variable digestions. And then and pittas, actually, before I get to kapha, the pittas, when dysfunctional, too much of that heat can actually cause inflammatory diseases like gout or acid reflux or even heart disease. And then the last one is that kapha. And people who are kapha are the slow and steady wins the race. I'm kapha. Very, very much grounded, very much wanting to have a routine every day, can be very reliable. But some of the imbalances that can occur can be things like obesity or depression or fatigue, growths on the body. So we want to maintain all of those qualities that we have within us. And every day is a wonderful day, not only to look at what is my constitution or where do I tend toward, but what activity will the day bring? What food will I be eating? Do these have a predominance of vata, pitta, kapha as well? And how do they impact me as a person, as an individual who has such a unique makeup? And it's through that that we can really use food as medicine. And a really great example I like to use is that if the digestion is very sluggish, a really great simple thing to do is to drink ginger tea. Ginger is very stimulating. It can really help with the digestive process. It can help with elimination. But what happens if the digestive fire is already really high? What if there's a burning sensation in the gut and the stomach doesn't feel very well? We don't want to add that additional quality to it. So we would use ginger, but we would use maybe ginger in a powdered form, because when it's powder dried and ground down, the properties become less inflammatory and less heating. The taste becomes a little sweeter and not as sharp. And so it's those ways of looking at food, herbs, climate, the activity that we do, that we can introduce that into our bodies and our minds and find a more balanced place for ourselves.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you. Such a great explanation of it. So, this is kind of off the cuff question, but usually when we kind of start talking about doshas, everyone's like, well, what am I? Is there a resource that you would suggest? I know that you can kind of Google search some quizzes to take it.
That's a great question, and I get that question a lot. So traditionally, Ayurvedic doctors and practitioners, we don't love the online quizzes. And the main reason is because, really what it's doing is it's asking a question of yourself, but it turns out to be very subjective. Is that where you are today? Were you in a healthy state when you answered those questions? Is that really your constitution? Or we have the capacity to be able to change ourselves at any time that we want to. And this is where the psychiatry piece of Ayurveda really comes in. We can cultivate whatever we want. We can push our doshas in whatever direction, even if it's for the purpose of balancing the body. Trauma in life, injury, all kinds of things can come along and create that change. So when we answer just a generic online questionnaire, I usually recommend to people, if you're going to do it with more of an educational way of understanding the body versus doing it to just find out what your body type is. My favorite book to recommend, so you can really read about this and do your own assessment from a more holistic standpoint versus just a survey, is a book. It's a classic. It was written many years ago by Deepak Chopra, and it's called Perfect Health. It's a great introduction to Ayurvedic medicine, and I would recommend that being a starting point to learn more about you and your particular dosha.
Awesome.
As an Ayurvedic practitioner, I have 3 methods of diagnosis to help understand what's going on in a person's body. There's something called, and I'll use some of the Sanskrit words. This is the traditional language of many of the old 5,000-year-old texts. The first one is called prashna, which is asking questions, finding out more about the person, their childhood, their family history, their likes, their dislikes. The second question would be, the second form of diagnosis would be darshan, which is looking at the person. everything from how they look to what time do they arrive, where do they sit when they come into the consultation, what their handwriting is like, how in the way in which they have answered the questions. All of these things are important. Tongue diagnosis, looking at the tongue, looking at the skin. We look at the urine, the feces. We can tell from many different standpoints what is going on with the body. And then the last form of diagnosis is called Nadi Vigyan, which is really the more important piece and the more important diagnosis. And it's a very non-invasive way of looking to see what's going on into the body, and is through something called pulse diagnosis. And pulse diagnosis, there are 3 of the fingers, and under each finger there are 5 sections, and then there are 7 levels to the pulse. And the permutations of all of those tell me what's going on. It's a very scientific approach, but with practitioners, each practitioner brings their own expertise to the table and can help the patient determine what's going on with them.
Awesome. I've heard it described as Ayurveda is the science of the body, or yoga would be the science of the mind, and that kind of resonated as a yogini with me, this idea. Awesome. So I know that you specialize in digestive health, and she is, for lack of a better word, an expert on poop. I'm taking the words from her mouth.
I love it.
As well as some psych health. So kind of tell me a little, like some of your top suggestions for digestive health.
So, I mean, the key thing with digestion is it doesn't matter a lot of times when there's an ailment. It doesn't matter what you eat. If the functioning of the digestive system is not correct, we can eat the best food available, but if we can't digest it, then it's not right for us. And this is why we get into so many questions about what is the right diet for me. Should I be vegan? Should I be vegetarian? Should I be paleo? How should I eat? And it really, really, really depends on the person. So when I talk about tips for really good digestive health, I will talk more in generalities because each person really is different. So the very first thing that I always suggest is that when we wake up in the morning, there's always going to be a little bit of an acidic nature in the digestion. It is good for all the constitutions to wake up in the morning and drink warm lemon water. It helps to create a really nice alkalizing effect for the digestion that will help to continue that for the rest of the day. The second tip that I would have for really good digestion is to avoid too much snacking throughout the day. If blood sugar drops, we certainly want to make sure that we can bring that back up again, but it's best not to eat a meal before the other meal has digested. Giving your body a little bit of a break gives your gallbladder, your liver, and your pancreas an opportunity to reset and digest the food that we've already eaten. The next thing that I would recommend is really eating with the seasons. Not only do we take into consideration our personal constitution, but we really need to take into consideration where we live. I love telling this particular story. I grew up half of my life in India and half in Canada, and I grew up in a very traditional Indian home. So for, I think, the last 10 generations back, we've all been vegetarians. I moved to Colorado one year in the middle of winter, and I was a vegetarian here, and I didn't have access to some of the traditional Ayurvedic food or Indian food that has those complete proteins that we need in order to really have good functioning with the digestion. So I started to feel a little bit ill. I decided to really step into the role of eating sustainably, and I sat down and decided to eat meat for the first time in my life.
How old were you?
I was 30. I sat down and had a big piece of meat, and I did not have a bowel movement for a week. And I learned that not only do I need to keep my constitution in mind, but I also do need to understand that I live in a place where in the middle of winter, we wouldn't be eating a salad. So how do we come to terms with who we are, our genetic predisposition, but also the climate in which we live? And together, by taking all those pieces, we can start to integrate some of those sustainable concepts into our lifestyle while still maintaining and understanding our genetic predisposition, how strong is our digestion, do I have the capacity to break down heavy saturated fats? And once you get to know your body in that way, then that's a great way to understand how to incorporate the foods in your environment into your body.
Love it. I love it.
A few other tips that I do like to recommend is always to sit for a few minutes after eating. It really does help with the digestive process and the way in which the stomach is shaped. It actually is really helpful to lean a little on your left side. It's a great Ayurvedic tip as the stomach curves this way and all the hydrochloric acid and gastric juices sit on the very bottom. It can help with not having blood sugar crashes after eating, and it also helps to keep digestion optimal. And then the very last thing is just always make sure that when you are preparing your food, it's whole and clean, it's prepared by a happy cook, and to sit and only eat when you're eating. Enjoy the company of others and try not to sit in front of the TV or work or be at your desk. Give your digestive system the value that it needs in honoring what its process is and what its big and very important job of your life is too.
Love it. Awesome tips. Thank you. I love that leaning left. I'm going to try that.
Try it out. It's really nice.
Awesome. Well, so much great information. Your wealth of knowledge is deep, and we really appreciate you sharing with us. So where can our club members find you and keep learning from you?
Yes, thanks for asking. I have a website, suryawellbeing.com, and you can always take a look to see what I have to offer through the health center in Durango, Colorado, and in Tucson, Arizona. I do offer individual consults. I do also do a lot of classes, and I love teaching and specifically talking about bowel movements and the digestive system. And I offer those from time to time as well. And if you want to sign up and join our newsletter, you can go on our website and enter your email address, and then you'll receive updates on our next lecture. I also have a few videos out there that you can check out, and you'll be directed to those on the website as well. And then I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
And
thank you.
It was nice to talk to you, Sarah.
Yes, thank you. Always. All right. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you soon.